Today's kernel is going out to Carol Ann, who left me a very kind message. She said, I want to first say that I never leave comments or feedback, but I just listened to your podcast for the first time and your cake analogy blew my mind. I'm now a listener for life. So Carol Ann, thank you so much for the kind words and appreciate you checking out the show and happy to have you listening. Hope you enjoy today's episode. Hey, this is Chris. Hope you're doing well and welcome to Popcorn Finance, the show where we discuss finance in about the time it takes to make a bag of popcorn. One of the things that I've been learning more about and kind of understanding about myself and how we all think about money and investing is that it's okay to not invest in things that you don't understand. Like, that's fine. Just because you hear about it all the time doesn't mean you have to put your money into it. And I thought there was no better person to talk about this topic with than Jessica Moorhouse. So Jessica, how are you doing?
I'm doing good and very excited to talk about this. Lots to say.
Oh, there's so much to say about this. But just to let everyone know who you are. So Jessica Moorhouse, she is we talked about this. There's so many things I could use to describe all the great things you do. But you're a money expert, you're an accredited financial counselor, and you're the host of the More Money podcast, which I enjoy listening to very much. So
thank you.
Appreciate you joining me.
I'm so excited to be here because I'm also a big fan of your show. So this is a treat.
You know, you have so much experience talking about these topics and interviewing so many different experts. I think when you talk about this stuff so much, there's still things that we don't understand. I'll talk to someone, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about right now, but I'm learning as you're talking to me about these topics. It takes a level of growth that I'm trying to work towards to say, I do not understand this, so I will not be putting my money in this. I can still learn about it, but I don't have to put my money into this while I'm learning about it.
Exactly. I don't need to buy AMC stock because everyone else is buying AMC stock. Because when you think about it, I think because we have this kind of label, it's an investment. We think, oh, well, if I do this, I'll have more money. But it's really, you are purchasing something. You're purchasing an asset. Would you go to the store and buy some product that you don't know what it does? No, you wouldn't. Exactly. That'd be dumb. Just because you're like, well, maybe this is it's on sale, so it's a good deal. Even though I don't know what it does, I'm like, that's not a good deal. You're putting your money into something that has no actual value to you, and you may make a poor choice and probably can't return it. And so when you're mentioning investment things that are popping up that we don't understand, I mean, I swear every single day there's a new cryptocurrency that's popping up. And honestly, I don't know whether they are real or they're jokes. You know what I mean? Like, I know Dogecoin is it Dogecoin? I don't know. Doge? Who knows? It's a dog. There's a dog involved. That is apparently real. But then there's some other ones that pop up. I'm like, is that real? And if I am already confused about whether a cryptocurrency is real or not real, that should be a red flag, because we should have a full understanding of what we're actually putting our money into and how it actually works. And I mean, one story I'll share of a big money mistake I made. So this was several years ago. This was before Canada legalized cannabis. We're just about to, and we're like, oh, the industry is going to be huge here. Let's get in on it. And so you can invest in, cannabis companies. And lots of them you can buy, obviously stocks or an ETF of a bunch of these companies. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to, be diversified and invest in all these very specific cannabis companies. And I did. And guess what happened? Bought at the top and it has never recovered. And I sold at a loss. So I lost money. And that is because I literally bought something I didn't quite understand because of peer pressure and FOMO. And then what happened? I lost money. And I mean, it's a lesson I learned, but also a regret. So in general, if you don't understand what something is or how it works or what are the risks that you're actually taking, probably not a good idea. Like, we work so hard for our money. I think sometimes we forget about that. We work so hard to earn money. Why would you just throw it into something? It's like the same as buying a lottery ticket. You're like, I hope this works out. It's like, you're probably not going to win the lottery though. Like, there's a very good chance you will not win anything and you just lost that money.
I appreciate so much you sharing a situation where you invested and you lost money, because no one shares the failure. So you rarely hear this. I remember when I just got out of college, I was so into looking at these stocks and buying individual stocks. And I was like, oh, you know what? I think I'd heard news about, I think, what was it, Sprint? I forgot. I don't even know at this point. It was some company that I was like, I heard great things. This is going to work out. I'm going to throw some money in here. And it went to zero. I think the company, so it must have not been Sprint, but whatever company it was just went out of business.
Wow.
But we don't talk about these things because we don't want to look dumb. We don't want to talk about it. We only want to talk about all the successes.
Or we think they're so rare. It's so like rare that a company is going to go bust. I'm like, they go bust all the time. When we think about stocks and investing, we think about the top 10 stocks that are doing crazy well. But I mean, that's not kind of the reality. And yeah, usually, I mean, even I got this message from my uncle, bless his heart, in his 50s. He's like, oh, I think what you're doing is so cool. Oh, you know how? And then he started telling me some of his strategies for investing. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to comment. Love my family, but I'm just not going to go there. And I think he has like a diversified portfolio. I hope so, most likely in mutual funds. But it sounded like he also has a fun money account. And he's like, yeah, I just kind of buy stocks based on like, some tips I get from friends. I'm like, who are your friends? Are they like very intelligent, financial industry people? Or are they just people who also heard it from a friend, it's kind of like one of those things. It's like, would you take any kind of important advice, like health advice, just from a friend? Well, maybe health. Sometimes actually we're pretty bad at that, actually, aren't we? With like fad diets and stuff like that. But like legal advice, like would you take legal advice just from your friend? Probably not. You should probably talk to a professional in that field. So, yeah.
I host another podcast called This is Awkward along with my co-host Allison. And on this show, we discuss your awkward money situations like this one right here.
My sister decided to move out on her own. She declined any financial preparation, like having any type of emergency funds, and wouldn't take me up on helping her budget. I told her she should continue to live rent-free with our parents for as long as possible. Well, come to find out, she was just telling everyone, including our parents, that if she needed money for rent or anything, she knew I'd just give it to her. A very awkward conversation followed after that.
So if you want to find out how we would handle this awkward money situation, or you want to send in your own situation for us to discuss on the podcast, search for This is Awkward on the podcast app you're listening to this show right now, or go to the show notes to find the link. I don't know why money advice has become one of those things that you can just take from anyone. Like, there's just so many experts out there who have these tips that for some reason they know and no one else knows, and they're ahead of the curve, and we're supposed to take their advice. And even if we don't understand what's going on, just throw some money in there and hope for the best. I don't know why it's become so common now.
I think part of it is due to social media. And so we give kind of automatic credibility and authority to people that have big followings or that say, I've earned a lot of money, so you should listen to me. But it's like, just because you have a lot of followers or have a lot of money or earned a lot of money, how does that actually translate into you being able to give me financial advice or investment advice? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I see people all the time, like lots of like the business coaches out there that are like, I made all this money, and so you should buy my thing so you can also buy money. I'm like, but didn't you make money based off selling that thing that you're like, it's like, wait a minute. I don't know how you're making a lot of money gives you the expertise to show me how to do a certain thing. Like, if you're the only evidence that you can do it, it's like, but can you actually help other people? Like, I don't know about that, So it's like, I don't know why we're in this world where we'll just take money advice from anybody. I think it's just we're at this point. And the internet is still, when you think about it, fairly new. I mean, I was a kid when the internet I had no concept of the internet. So it is still like in its early stages. I think we're still at the stage where there's so much information. We haven't figured out a good way to filter it right now.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, so for you, how do you go about, or how do you even recommend, like, to your listeners to approach these situations where people come to them with their hot tips, what you should be throwing your money into? How do you advise people approach these situations?
Well, I kind of, tell everybody, take everything with a grain of salt. Even like me, I always tell people openly, I have a bias. Everyone has a bias. Even if they're giving like pretty good information, they have some sort of bias. So for me, my bias is towards like, I really like passive investing in index ETFs, slow and steady kind of wealth generation. But that is still a bias because there's other people who are like, well, I've actually made, a really great decision doing active investing and made lots of money that way. It's not that they're wrong. It's just like we have different points of view. So The one thing I talk a lot about, on my show and to people that have questions for me is everyone has a bias, but everyone also has an opinion. And it's your job to figure out, is the information I'm receiving factual and is there evidence-based? Or is it an opinion? Or is it a mix of the two? And then how do I kind of do my own due diligence to figure out, is this actually applicable to me? Is this going to help me? Or should I just be like, okay, thank you very much, and then put it aside?
See, I know that's the reason why I really liked you. I love your approach to this. I love this advice. And if people want to, hear more of what you do, check out what you do, listen to you, watch your videos, where should they go?
Well, you can find me at my website, jessicamoorhouse.com, or check my podcast out, the More Money Podcast.
I can definitely recommend. It's a great podcast. You're great on the mic. And I'll make sure I put all that in the show notes so that way people can easily go find you.
Thanks so much.
And a big thank you to all of you for joining me here again for another episode. And at the very start, in the kernel of the episode, I read a note that I received from Carol Ann. And in there, she mentioned a cake analogy that I did. She was referencing episode 241. It's called Investing is Like Baking a Cake. And in this episode, I made up this analogy to hopefully help index funds become a little bit clearer and make a little more sense. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes if you want to check out that episode for yourself. And if you want to leave me a message or just say hi, you can come join me over on Instagram. Just look for Popcorn Finance Podcast, or I'll put a link in the show notes that you can click as well. Or you can just send me an email over at questions@popcornfinance.com. As always, I appreciate you joining me here for another bag of popcorn. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, boy, keep it poppin' like Mary Poppins.